Hey everyone, it's Rob, aka Graculin with MMORPG.com. Tonight I'm talking with Josh Hall about the repopulation. Hi Josh.
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come and spend some time with us and talk about your game you got coming out here.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us who might be watching live.
We actually do have a number of people already who've joined in on us.
Oh, that's scary. At least someone showed up.
Not just me and you.
Yeah, I know. It's like you just never know. You tell people to come and somebody shows up. So
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. For those of you guys that are in chat and for watching on the VOD later on, currently we've got looping to the side of us the PAX trailer for the repopulation. Speaking of which, you guys were just at PAX earlier this month. How was that?
or late last month. Yeah, things were pretty good. It's the first time kind of really being by ourselves, working on a booth, so it's kind of a good experience to kind of get us ready for Prime. We're going to have a much larger showing at Prime, so it was kind of get a good feeling for what we want to do at that time period, so we can have a better showing, when that comes around.
Awesome. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's establish, so who is Josh Hall? And what have you done in the past? And how'd you get involved with the repopulation?
Sure. My background's a little diverse, a little different, I would guess. I've primarily been involved with working in IT in school districts. So I come from a slightly different background compared to most people who've probably been in the game development track or working on, developing games through some other fashion. I did a little bit like MUD, stuff like that when I was younger, especially back in high school, up past high school through college, stuff like that. But most of my background has really been in system design, managing servers. At about, what was it, 2007, 2008, I started getting into 3D, like MMO design. Started working on kind of like a 3D version of the MUD, which was called Rafferman at the time. And then I seen the Repopulation, which was a project that the other lead developer was working on, J.C. Smith, and we kind of joined forces at the time. We brought in Stoddy a few years later after that, I think about 2009, who's our lead artist, and we've been adding people ever since then, artists, content writers, people that work on writing lore, work on writing stories, people doing level design. So just getting keep bringing people in and into the project. So it's pretty much grown to somewhere 15, 20 people right now. And we just interviewed a bunch of writers, a whole slob of them. It seemed like for the last few days. So we've been bringing some more people in, also trying to bring in a few more artists and people to work on that kind of side as well.
It's awesome. So find a lot of people you like.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's see. It's one of those things that we have some people that are working kind of more professionally, full-time, involved in the project. We have other people that are working kind of just contributing part-time or doing it kind of more of a hobby type thing. So we got a little bit of both involved with that. I mean, most of the people running it are, really professionally, involved with the project. But the other people that just want to, help contribute, like to write a story or something for an MMO. So you kind of see, who you get out of that process.
Awesome. Sounds great. So for all of you out there who want to contribute to the repopulation, you can write a short story and email it to me, and I'll vet them, and then I'll forward them on to Josh. And if you're not just crazy and outlandish, and you might see,
then I'll forward it on to a little further down the road, and
maybe your quest will end up in an MMO. So
should be fun.
A really interesting distinction that you guys have, and it's kind of becoming a trend, but not so much this time last year, is that you guys are, I wouldn't say you're the product of, but you have benefited from a successful Kickstarter.
Yeah, we did a Kickstarter during last year in the summer, so it was pretty small compared to most of like the other MMOs are going like 1-2 million nowadays. It was like 53,000, which isn't fully enough to fully develop an MMO, but really kind of got us kickstarted, I guess, since based on what Kickstarter is supposed to be used for. So it allowed us to bring in the lead artist, which we talked about, Stoddy, allowed him to come in, kind of work some more on the project, and allowed us to bring in some other people. I myself have been working on it full-time beginning this year as well, so it was about part-time with some other stuff that was going on, did consulting work, stuff like that. So we got a lot more people who are a lot more involved with it professionally full-time now because of Kickstarter. And it's also really allowed us to kind of really build the product up as well so that we'll have a better product to deliver once it ships.
All right, sounds great. Going to talk a little bit something about a personal interest of mine, but it tends to be a primary focus, I think, for a lot of people that are really into sandbox MMOs, and that is crafting. A lot of theme park MMOs anymore, and I don't use the term theme park in a derogatory fashion. I love MMOs on both sides of the playground. It's just you tend to craft. Maybe you don't even do it while you're leveling because they don't really help you because the leveling's become such a fast process. You level, then you level your crafting, and you get the max level crafting. You make a couple items, and then a week later you're not wearing them anymore. You know, how is crafting going to play in to the repopulation?
Yeah, we have, let's just kind of start from the top. We have a slightly different system how that is set up. I mean, starting at the very beginning, I guess the big difference, of course, is going to be that we have no levels, so there's no like level 1 through 50 or 60 or 70 or 10 more after the next expansion. We are completely based around the skills that are available in the game, so I think we talked about earlier, we have like 16 or 17 trade skills wrapped around different crafting lines, whether it's from like robotics for creating robotic pets, creating kind of medic-based kits or stems that used to heal people, from creating what we call fittings, which are basically for upgrading stats for weapons and armor. So in our crafting process, we really look at developing, you still have kind of a little bit of progression as well. Not everyone can create the best things out there immediately. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that I can just give you, you know, whatever best materials are in the game. You can just produce whatever the best, you know, item is out there. So we do have a little bit of progression where people have to still go through and kind of skill up their crafting lines, but our crafting skills, or the way it's set up at least, is that when you start off beginning-wise, you might create a low-grade product, and as you get higher and higher and use better quality ingredients as well, you can create the top-line grade, you know, quality products out there in the game. And also everything in the game is done through the crafting system. So we have it would normally be drops, which we use corpse extraction, which is also skill-based, to get loot off the corpses, I guess would be lack of a better term. So let's say you kill some kind of creature that is on the planet, you know, the game you're playing. So you skin that, roughly would be, you know, normally what you would see with skinning, and you get certain things off that animal that could be used for making weapons, making armor, could also be used for making certain kind of things and other lines of areas of those crafting recipes. So you'll be able to get those ingredients, and those will have different qualities based on how skilled you are at getting those resources off that creature.
Awesome. Something I noticed, and I kind of wanted to talk about this later on, but since we did mention in the crafting section, was the husks. And I shouldn't say the husks, but the items, and you kind of created more like a shell. And you really had the fittings to outfit those items. And from what I saw in the video, it looked like there was about 5 slots in the shell. So are you kind of, when you said things will progress, when you make, like, say I made a rifle at the very beginning, I was only like level, well, I guess you're not really having levels, so I was a noob, all right? I made my first rifle. Yeah. I'd only have like a couple different fittings I could put on it, but I could put better and better fittings as I got higher. But then once I got higher, I could actually make maybe a shell that had room for more fittings, and I could put more and better fittings.
So yeah, how we progress that, we do have like a slight progression with the fittings. We don't want everyone just to take the best fittings and put them into whatever weapon shell, especially when they're starting. We cut off about halfway, so let's just say there was, you know, levels 1 through 50. Let's say that's like level 30. That's kind of where we cut off the max point, where let's say you were at this skill line progression-wise. You could put those fittings in there, and theoretically, if you had the best fittings in the game, it would be an A9 quality-wise for us. You could put those in there, then have pretty much like the best weapon stat-wise in the game, based on, you know, if this was the best, you know, stat product that you needed. So we do have that. So the newbies put those in there. The fittings, the stats are going to be slightly lower than the top tier, you know, that you're going to be able to get about midway progression-wise. Our stat progression is not really that, you know, crazy though compared to most your traditional theme park MMOs, where, you know, you won't be able to go out there and help out some more of the veteran players, even with some of your basic low-level equipment, you know, that would see their low-tier equipment. You could still be able to go and play with your friends who maybe have been playing for 50 hours, 100 hours, 2,000 hours. And of course, as you progress, you know, you'll slowly kind of progress up from, you know, the tier levels there. There's 4 of them right now, at least in the game. So you'll be able to go from the first tier, the second, and the third to the fourth. And once you do the fourth, you're pretty much on par with everybody else. But with the fittings themselves, the sockets, the shells, as we call them with the weapons, let's say you have a rifle. By default, those have 5 fitting slots. There's no way to upgrade or change that. What we do is, as you mentioned with the grade product, is you can have a higher grade. So like if an A5 is going to be worse than an A9, then, you know, a D5, of course, is all the way down further in the grade scale. It's going to be worse. We also have degradation of the quality itself as well. So if it starts off at an A5, it'll slowly degrade till it goes down to an A0, then they break. So we do have that process in there to really kind of remove a lot of the equipment and loot out of the economy in the game. Otherwise, you'll have that stuff that will just sit there forever. And after a while, there's nothing to really be gained from out there and skinning or extracting from the creatures to get the new upgrades for the equipment. So we have that process on the server that takes care of that point of it. But with the fitting system, we have, as you see with the 5 sockets, we have 7 different types right now that we just call like A, B, C, D, E, F fittings. And each one of those have a core stat that you can associate based on the materials that you use. So iron would have a different material from calibrite, which is kind of a native resource on the planet that the game is based around. So each one of those have different kind of assets or stats that they can associate with a fitting. So you can kind of customize the weapon however you want it. There's some restrictions, so you just cannot, stack damage attributes on there. Of course, everyone wants to do more damage, so you just can't allow that to, just keep going. Otherwise, everyone would have the same kind of fitting setup. But there's quite a bit of combination options and choices in that process.
Okay. Let's move on to another thing that's really near and dear to the sandbox, and I'm kind of focusing more on the sandbox aspects of the game right now, because here at MMORPG.com, there is a very rabid fan base for sandboxes.
Yeah, people are looking for something a little different.
Yeah, because there's really not a whole lot of them right now. So I just want to kind of take a look at that. And one of the big things in there is PvP. And you always kind of run a risk with PvP and sandboxes because it has to be for a reason. If not, it's just can turn into a grief fest, which can very quickly, harm a new game's, just playability. How is PvP going to work in your game, and what function is it going to serve other than, just killing people?
Sure. We'll start with, I guess the first thing to start off with is we right now plan to have 2 kind of rule sets for the servers, which we call normal mode and hardcore mode. We'll start with normal mode just because that's kind of the normal kind of game that most people will see. Most of the information you see about the PvP is based around that rule set. We have safe zones, which are specific to the 2 factions in the game, OON and FPR. So you have a faction which is OON, another one which is FPR. Those are safe areas. If you decide to turn on flagging and decide you want to go into what we call active military, then if you're FPR and you run into an OON zone, you can go and engage combat with other people that are flagged and as active combat. As soon as you go out of those safe zones, though, then you're automatically flagged for PvP. So as soon as you get out of those safe zones, which on the normal server is a very considerable large amount of land mass in the game, so we're just not talking like the starter cities. We're talking, each one of those factions has 4 regions. Then the contested area is kind of in the center. It's consisted of at least 4 regions right now, which will probably grow as we add more contested area. The big thing with the contested area, though, is that is also where all the nation content is going to go, which is what allows players to build their own cities, build their own nations, do at least one piece of the housing aspect of our game as well. So a lot of that PvP content is going to be focused around that. So we have sieging of the cities, which is possible in the normal server. This can be done pretty much through the process of taking control and sieging the city. So there's kind of a detailed process in how that will go through. But it's to the point where we have to make sure that you don't have the whole zerging mess that you have with most other games where people are just throwing bodies, left and right. So we have to have a process in place that allows more of kind of a resource-based, consumption-based process of doing that. Otherwise, you just have people constantly throwing bodies. It just becomes a numbers game. Beyond that, we also want to focus on having a lot of resource control. So certain resources will be used by the cities and nations, whether it's to build up the cities or it's used such as like the calibrite that we talked about earlier, or the iron that would be used more for creating player content, player weapons, fitting, stuff like that. So there will be that, a bit of resources that people can fight over. And at least on the normal server, we want to kind of force people to gravitate toward that as well. So it's not, I control this little base area or this little, tower that does nothing, or, it doesn't really provide me anything. It's just, a little red or blue mark on the map. So when you control these cities can grow and you can build the cities. They pretty much start as a land a plot of land. So they start off as nothing, and you can grow the cities by bringing in these resources and by building certain structures or buildings inside of those cities that'll help it grow. Once it grows further past that. You have options for military options, defense options, building more kind of stuff that would help crafters. So you go through that whole process, and after a while, of course, then a city becomes something you want to hold and defend. It's not just something that was there on the map or something that really doesn't have any value to anybody. Beyond that aspect of the game, on the PvP side, we also have what we call PvP engagements. We have an engagement system, which is kind of like the event system you see in a lot of games nowadays, where something happens in the game. So Rift has these type of systems as well. So when you go through an event will happen in the game, and it's usually it could start off as a zone-based or kind of a region-based event, and it can also grow and mutate out. But depending on what happens and what the players do or don't do, it could mutate out farther past that. But a lot of those also have kind of arching lines on what happens if players do this or that, and kind of controls what's going on in the PvP areas. So it could just be a mixture of players versus players. It could be a mixture of NPCs as well. That could be acting as a guard, or it can be acting as just random NPCs or critters in the area that are attacking. So there's kind of a lot of that content as well, just beyond the open world PvP. You run into the zone, start shooting at somebody else.
All right, that actually kind of answered the questions that I was going to go to next, and that was about engagements, which is kind of was going to be a continuation off of this question. Let's talk about quests, which in the repopulation are known as missions, and the fact that apparently they're mutatable. Their mission can change over time and not be the same every time based on the player.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the kind of core tenets that we have with kind of player-driven or player-created content, is we want as much of the content to be mutatable or based on player decisions as possible. I mean, not every single aspect can be. It does require someone to go in there and code through and make sure that all these things are set up to be storyline-based like that, where players can make choices. But we try to build as much of that into the fabric, as many of the systems as possible. With the missions, there's a few easy examples. Some of the simple ones are that the NPCs have certain traits or attributes. They might be in a certain mood. Somebody's come by and wronged them, and now they're in a certain different mood, which will open up more mission lines or quest lines that weren't there before. Some of these are, you could look at that as a pretty traditional or simple mission that you go through and it would cycle through, or it could be one of these things where it requires 3 or 4 different factors to happen for this, this will ultimately, kind of come to fruition. So we have that aspect in the mission system that's built up already. The information could be either kind of done, after a reboot, everything resets, or also can be persistent as well. We have a system in place where those attributes on those NPCs will stay that way. So you have a kind of a way to, if you know exactly, I guess, how to kind of game the system and get these NPCs into certain attributes or certain kind of moods or personalities or rule sets, that they'll go through and do different things. But yeah, it's just then you go through then some of the more higher grained, really more dynamic or the more detailed missions. We'll go through those processes. And we still have like really basic missions as well. I mean, some of the stuff that no one really cares too much about, to go kill 5 of this or go kill 10 of that. We save a lot of time by, every game has those. We don't want people sitting there writing, 200, 300 of these missions. Pretty much all the content in the zones and the areas, the regions around them, that knows about. So it automatically will populate that information out and send those off to players as part of missions if they want to do them, or they can completely skip those. We have a few of those, some simple stuff as well. You might take this to X to Y. But most players, they've seen this content, time and time again. After a while, it gets boring. You don't want to be killing 10 critters every, single mission to level up, or what you would see in traditional theme park games. So we try to get a kind of a mixture of that going. And that really kind of brings us more towards the PvE side of the engagements, which feature quite a bit of that, but it also allows the content in the zones to mutate as well. An example is there was a little bit of it that was shown in our last pre-PAX video. We have a zone called Fort Hudson, which if the Lasso, which is one of the indigenous creatures in the game, will attack the fort, and if you don't defend the fort, they'll take over the fort. Then it opens up different missions, and also different content will spawn out in that area. So that is kind of an example, kind of a simple example actually, of how content can kind of mutate in the game. And let's say if you leave that fort unattended, after so long, it's also possible for that content to mutate out of that zone into other zones. So you might see a buildup of Lasso in the area. And that might be good or bad depending on what you're looking for. I mean, if you're trying to go through and do missions with those NPCs in the area, those human NPCs that were there in that fort before, it's not doing you any good. But let's say you need some resources off these Lasso, or you need to build faction for something or whatever reason. So that allows players to kind of really control how the content is being built out in the game based on the choices they make.
All right. Unfortunately, fetch quests aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and we're going to see those in every game.
Yeah, you'll see a few of those. So we don't really spend too much time on those. We got some really basic ones, and a lot of it's dynamically done. Blah blah. When you bring to blah there, we don't spend too much time on it. But a lot of times you need something to start off with basics.
Yeah, it's an unescapable trope in the MMO industry these days. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the time that we spent though is more on the epic stuff. That's something that requires multiple quest givers. Spans over 17, 18 steps, different storyline kind of type of deals.
So everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So. But okay, so we've talked about the PvE, we've talked about the PvP, and since there is PvP, I would imagine that there's going to be some way that people line up on which side are you. I'm red, I'm blue, I'm purple, I'm green, I'm pink, whatever. And in your game, it appears that there's factions and there's nations, or...
Yeah, there is. We call it a 3-faction game, which is kind of not exactly what it is. What we do is the 2 core factions, which we talked about earlier, which is O1 and FPR. Then we have the 3rd faction, which we refer to as Rogue. When you join a nation, so let's say a player creates a nation and you go join that nation, you have the option of, if you're O1, you can be, of course, you have to be peaceful with other O1 nations. You can be at war with, you have to be at war with FPR nations and vice versa. If you go Rogue, then you start off as neutral with everybody. Then you have the ability to either be peaceful with everyone, at war with everyone, pick and choose in between. So it really gives you a lot of control over the kind of alliances that you can build with other players in the game. So we call it a 3rd faction, but I mean, once you really get into the nation system, or the part of the aspect where you're building nations and cities, the alliances allows you to build a lot more than just 1 or 2 or 3 factions. I mean, theoretically, you could have hundreds of factions on this on one server. And also, one of the part we're going to start doing also is allowing sub-nations into the game, which are really their own kind of separate entities or nations, but they're kind of bannered with other nations as well. We've kind of been throwing that around a little bit, how to kind of redo a little bit permission-wise and kind of mechanical system-wise how we have that set up. So I should have some information on that pretty soon, probably once we do some more Siege update information as well. So
sounds great. Another one that's kind of near and dear to people's hearts anymore is pets, because everybody likes the kitties and the hedgehogs. How do pets work in your game? I know they're there. I've seen pictures.
Yeah,
I've heard tales.
We've heard tales, yeah. We have kind of a 3-tier system, or a 3-pronged system with pets. We have tameable pets, which are pets that you find out in the world. You'll find small baby critters. Certain creatures have small baby critters that you can tame, and those allow you to grow those pets out from these very small baby pets to much larger full adult pets. That system is probably the more complex of the 3. Just because there's the maintenance cost of maintaining the pet, feeding the pet, healing the pet, make sure it's healthy. If you don't do that, the pet itself can degrade and eventually die if you don't take care of it. So that aspect, there's a little more involved with managing that pet. The other 2 systems are...
You're going to get PETA called on me in game.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't log in this week. All my pets are dead.
Yeah. But it's mostly from combat and getting killed, stuff like that. So you have to be careful about, someone logs in a week later and their pet's dead. They're going to be screaming. So definitely not that bad. But the other 2 pet systems we have are another one, which probably is like the second most complicated, or maybe even more complicated, depending how you want to look at it, is the robotic pets. Those are completely crafted, so you get quite a bit of options on how to build the pets, kind of like the core base pet, along with the different kind of weapons and bodysuits and stuff that are available for the the robotic pets. So there will be quite a bit of options on how to customize those. Those will work very similar to how the fittings work. We're still going through kind of finalizing the exact finish on how those are going to be set up. But the way they work now, they're very similar to what the fittings will work. So you socket in certain type of elements into the robot to get different kind of weapon types or ability types for the robot. I think right now there's 5 or 6 base shells based on what kind of pet archetype it is. Then you can socket those those changes in there, and the pets from archetype do different things. It might it might assist in healing. It might be more of a kind of a combat type tank style pet, where other ones might have other additional purposes. Then you have the third kind, which is kind of more simpler, but still has quite a bit of options. Is what we call the genetic engineered pets. Those are ones that also take resources from the game in forms of DNA and tissue and stuff like that from creatures you killed, and then they're kind of one-use created through the crafting system. So those have quite a bit of additional capabilities just because you could have different stacks of those, so it's a lot easier to have multiple lines of pets in there. They probably won't be as strong as the other two, but the flexibility of those types of pets will allow much more versatility in how they can deploy and use those type of pets.
That's very interesting, that last one. I'm still thinking about the implications of being able to genetically modify and create my own pets from tissue samples that I collect through the game. I think that in of itself is enough for some people to play the game. Just to have scientists, the pet system to see what they can create. It's alive! Alive!
Yeah. I mean, there'll always be some kind of, limitations art-wise, stuff like that. But, I mean, we'll have quite a bit of options there based on a lot of the creatures in the game. So, I mean, a lot of things you'll be able to see, kill it, and use it through that system in some fashion. With the robotic pets, though, it's like I said, there's a lot more customization, what you could do with the pet. But it's, it's based on whatever archetype that core pet model is based around of the robotic model.
All right. So when are people going to get a chance to check out just check out the game in general and these new systems?
Sure. We've been kind of talking about exactly what the process is going to be. We announced, I think, Q2 of 2013, hopefully going to beta. Of course, people are asking, oh, it's Q2. Where's beta? So, yeah, I mean, our original plan was to do that about late Q2, and it's a possibility that might slide Q3. Our main time frame, kind of really drop dead date, I would say, is before PAX Prime start, which is at the end of August. Next month, we should be opening up to more alpha testers. We did announce that earlier this month. So we're really rapidly going through and getting content in the game, getting more and more content. I mean, a lot of the systems are designed and ready to go, but getting the content in game and make sure that there's a game to play. It's nice to just look at a bunch of systems, but if there's no content to play, you really don't have much to go by. I mean, even if it's an alpha, I mean, there's a lot of expectations. You can go and just see what happened recently with expectations in an early beta build. So you have to make sure that there's enough out there for people to test. Kind of give them. You want to keep the bar, pretty high at that level, even if because most people when they come in, they're expecting a lot, even out of an alpha. So we have to make sure we're at that level. So it's kind of really going to be our first. Bringing in more people to really look at the product and see where the game's at, and really wanted to get their feedback on before we kind of move forward. If there are a lot of people telling us that, hey, we might need a little more time to, before we start bringing in the masses on that, we want to make sure we take the time to do it right. Same thing with release. I mean, we set November time frame, I believe it was, with Kickstarter. Again, hopefully beta and everything will be out by then, so that shouldn't be a big deal for at least people that went through the Kickstarter program. But I'm sure you've seen time after time again some bad releases, and we're not in a big rush. If it takes us a few extra months to get a product out, that's going to be stable. We want to spend the extra 2 or 3 months to get it done. So
I would encourage that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not under kind of, I would say, financial duress to get it out, at this certain time frame. There's not a marketing department that's, exhausted funds to make sure that
any publishers that are going to come bring you.
Yeah, maybe eventually, but yeah, not right now at least. Yeah.
That's a good point. Good luck with that one. Speaking of publishers and the money, I got 2 other things we'll talk about real quick. Have you guys really decided upon what kind of business model you're going to run with the game? It's going to be free to play? Is it going to be buy to play? We have a sub, cash shop, any combination of the 4?
Sure. I mean, right now we're looking at the free-to-play model we would start with kind of like a box fee. It's not, I say box fee, but you don't have to buy a box to play the game. So it's kind of the 20, 40, 60 type model where you could still play the game for free, but there's additional options based on those packages. Those are one-time package fees. So that's kind of why we call it kind of like a box fee. Then past that, we have some really kind of simple items. Would be equivalent to like an experience potion that we'd use to, a momentary boost in skill gains for a few hours. And past that, we really pushed the cosmetic style items. A lot of the stuff like the shells that we have really fits well into that system. We didn't really get too much into housing. But a lot of stuff as well. Some of the stuff would be done through the game, some through the crafting system, some through the shop system. So just really have to find kind of a synergy to tie those all together. That's always complicated at best sometimes. It's one of the bad things about that model is you need to try to find a good balance. Sometimes people get way too deep involved in trying to nickel and dime everybody for every last cent they can get out there. So we kind of want to find a good synergy between the systems. Which is fair to everybody, but allows us to keep the doors open, keep making continue to add to the product.
All right, sounds good. So what if people watch this interview and they're like, hey, repopulation sounds cool, interested in it, go to your website, but they weren't involved with Kickstarter. How can they get behind you now?
Sure. We're after the Kickstarter, we've done something called an early adopter, which is on the front page of the website up in the menu. A lot of the package deals that we had during Kickstarter you can get now. They've been slightly adjusted, but most of the mid-higher tier packages are still there. Most of the same features, customized armor, weapons, a statue as well. There's a variety of stuff on the website. You can go check that out on our website at www.degradation.com, and then up there in the early adopter is pretty much all the package breakdowns. So it's been available for like I said, a while after we started Kickstarter, and it's helped quite a bit. It's allowed things to kind of continue forward. So,
all right. So we got a few minutes here at the end to ask some questions that I know that the people in chat and the viewers.
One thing that I did want to cover that I think we forgot about was the hardcore server.
Okay.
Since we kind of got away from that in the PvP.
We did. We can loop back and talk about that.
Yeah, sure. You just go ahead and cover it now, or?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, one of the things I did want to discuss, but since we do have quite a bit of people that are focused and interested on the PvE aspect, is we're going to have 2 rule set servers, which was the normal server, which is the rule sets that we talked before, and the hardcore server. The hardcore server, we still don't have all the rule sets final on what the hardcore server is, but the kind of the basics, the ones that we've really kind of put out there at least, is that we go away from having like the degrading when you die or when you use an item. We have full corpse loot on the hardcore server. So if you die, you kill somebody, you can loot their corpse. Much less in the way of safe areas. So that'll be more of your traditional, maybe a starting area or something like that. Then after that, you're no longer safe. Or as soon as you run out of that boundary the first time, you're no longer safe. So there's, the safety net is kind of reduced there. So it's kind of what we've been looking at. A lot of the different mechanics will be slightly changed. I mean, a lot of the core mechanics will be in place, but I think we'll probably adjust how the sieging works slightly on the hardcore server. So people that are looking more for, going through more of the warfare side of the full-on warfare side with city sieging, at least on a more kind of common, not maybe necessarily day-to-day, but more, common occurrence than we hope to see on the normal server. That aspect will be there. And we're also kind of looking for input on that as well. We want to get as many players together that are interested in that kind of rule set and that kind of style of game and kind of figure out exactly what they want. It's kind of we feel that it's a good idea to kind of segregate those 2 populations because you start trying to mix the 2 together, then everyone, it's either too far over for the normal players, or they feel it's watered down on the hardcore side. So we're trying to really kind of get a good rule set for them in place that allows the players to kind of enjoy that kind of play style, whether it's from the complexity of it or maybe it's just more from the political dilemma that comes from a lot of that style of gameplay. So we're trying to really focus on that as well.
I can tell you that as soon as you said player looting, Ripper X was just like, his head went, what? Player looting?
Yeah, then you have other people that run the other way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's one of the guys.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it attracts certain players and it detracts others. So it's one of those. it just makes more sense. I think, sometimes you try to merge those together in one server, but it changes the economy and how it works, and one way or the other. So it just made more sense to really kind of target, that kind of rule set and that kind of gameplay to those players who want it versus those who, direly do not want it at all. So
there's a concept that you can do with that player looting, and maybe it's something that you've already looked at, but it's kind of like called threading, which allows a player to kind of attune an item to them. And the higher level you get, the more like these threads.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's an insurance system, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You can, but then you get to the point where people are doing it, or someone is calling for a cash out item of it, even worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone mentioned, it's like, yeah, maybe if you don't buy these lives, you die permanently. I'm like, it didn't come from me.
You probably never want to do that, but unfortunately, I've heard recently about somebody trying to do that. So
yeah,
that's interesting. It's permadeath unless you pay us.
Unless you pay to live, yeah. It's like, no, thank you.
It's like, in an MMO, are you speaking? No.
There's some guy who just, they're just waiting for you to respond so they can kill you and steal all your money. The devs are out there killing you themselves. Yeah, an extra paycheck.
That's horrible.
I know.
Josh is hitting the kill button. He's like, my GM client dead.
$10.
Yeah. $10. You can get that shiny vehicle back. Speaking of vehicles, that was actually one of the questions off of your forums. Vehicles. How are vehicles going to be present? How are they going to play in? Is it going to be cars, trains, automobiles, airplanes, helicopters, blimps, dirigibles?
Giant turtles, giant gnomes. Yeah, what we're going to do with vehicles, we'll start at the top. Very similar to what we were talking about with like robotics, where vehicles will have a very similar system based around them, where you can upgrade the vehicle. So you might have a base shell that has certain characteristics, kind of same thing with the weapons as well. The rifle has certain characteristics or attributes that it starts with. Then you modify those. Same thing with the vehicles. So you'll start with a base vehicle, which is kind of just a shell. Also allows us to do different shells, cosmetics, and game store, stuff like that. But you'll be able to modify the attributes of those vehicles. So you can adjust the speed. If it has weapons, let's say it's a combat vehicle, you can adjust the weapons, the armor. We'll have transport vehicles as well. I'm not so sure you can update the capacity of those. Just maybe we'll do that. I don't know. So you'll have some of those that you'll be able to do. So you'll be able to upgrade those. And as I mentioned right now, currently we do have kind of like 1 or 2 test vehicles in game, and we'll be adding more of those as we go, especially with the combat vehicles as well. We'll figure out getting those in place. People want to use those for kind of normal PvP, and also kind of look at how we want to implement those with siege mechanics as well. The basic thing now is with those is that there's a 2-passenger vehicle in game, so you have a driver and a rider, so both of those can mount the vehicle and get into it. So the driver
from the vehicle for the passenger?
Yeah, once we get the weapons mounted into the vehicle, you'll be able to take control of the weapons with the vehicle as well. So some will have like artillery style, just kind of guns. Some might also have some more larger siege style weapons that would be more for the siege vehicles. Mm-hmm. There's also some plans for kind of abilities, kind of same thing we have with the robotic pets, based on kind of the fittings and options you have available to the vehicle. So we'll have very similar to that system of that as well. There'll be some kind of degradation system built into that as well, just so people don't have the vehicle, maxed out all the time. Otherwise, again, there's nothing new coming out of the economy. Then we end up just building a bunch of new content, replacing it all every 6 months. So that's kind of what we'll do in that process with vehicles. I guess the other kind of things really talking about the vehicles is slightly different. With what we plan on doing, like the rider-style vehicles or the personal vehicles, you'll be able to spawn those out in the game. So you could be standing out in the wilderness and they'll magically appear. Or if you want to, I guess, a lore-based transport system or something to actually have the vehicle show up. For the more combat-oriented vehicles, those will have to be spawned inside of a, what do we call those? Basically, it's like a workshop for spawning the vehicles out. So when those spawn out, they'll basically start there, and the vehicle is persistent in the game for a little while at least. So as soon as you log out, the vehicle will stay there for maybe a minute before it despawns back out. Then you have to go back to the garage. Sorry, that was the name of what I was trying to...
Can anybody steal it?
No, at least not on the normal server. Let's see if that's something they want to do on the hardcore server or not.
You log out, your car's still there, you come back, it's gone. That or it's on cinder blocks and the wheels are missing.
Not only do they steal you and take your loot, they steal your car, yeah.
So, all right, another one of your forumites asked about the regions. They were European. They were concerned, will they be able to play with their American friends? Are you going to have IP locks, region locks? Are you even sure what you're going to do at this point?
The answer to that, not 100% sure. I mean, we don't really want to lock regions out unless we're getting to like kind of these Chinese, or other kind of Asian, groups coming in and doing all the farming. But most of those are usually IP locks, not whole region locks. I guess it depends how bad they want to go after that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what we're trying to do is, as a small company, we're probably going to focus on North American release. Doesn't make any sense for us to black out European customers, whether they're from Germany or the UK or France, wherever it might be over there, Poland, people like Russia from all over the place. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I have to deal with, of course, is the latency from crossing the pond over there. So
gotcha.
You'll have to deal with that aspect of it. But beyond that, I mean, we don't really want to restrict the amount, at least, from what we're looking at. When you get a publisher and you go over there, especially, once the publishers get involved, it's always hard telling, So usually the unfortunate part of the business, sometimes you have to give up a little bit on that. So, but it's one of the things we want to at least try to keep it open as much as possible. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure exactly why they do certain things, why they region lock. I imagine it has something to do with probably pricing, competitive pricing based on the regions, especially if you get over in, Asia and South Pacific. So yeah. I know it's much differently. Everything is much different over there. So
yeah, there's some very interesting business models once you start getting into Asia. I mean, at one point there were you could pay to play by the minute.
By the minute, by the hour, yeah. Where you get over the Euro market, it's pretty much kind of fairly similar to what it is here. So.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, a lot of people these days like to make their players look pretty, and they do that through different cosmetic options, whether it's dyeing their armors, adding different, I guess they're not really going so far as adding textures, but, adding tints. And one of the players want to know if there's a way they could tint and or eventually camouflage their own armor.
Sure. So what we offer is a tinting system on top of the visual equipment that we have already. So you'll be able to use inside of the game called dyes, which will be crafting created. So you'll have the cosmetic items, and then we layer, the artist could better explain how that exactly works, but we layer kind of adjustable areas which could be color tinted. So I believe I have to go back. I don't know why we didn't include it in the latest video. It's way back. I probably deleted it. But it goes to character creation, and it does show the color tinting in that area. So you can choose like red, blue, green, whatever. There's 4 slots for choosing the color. So you don't have complete control, but you can adjust those 4 color tints to kind of give it a different look. Then, as we go through and add more art assets, add in more different kind of, armor models, weapon models as well, you'll be able to adjust those. But, it's like any other game. We're limited by the amount of art assets that we can get in and, paying people to put them in.
All right, the next one also comes from the community. This has to do back with player versus player. Will there be collision detection? If I run into you, will I stop, or will I just run right through you?
Right now we don't have collision detection. I don't think we've decided to add that at the moment. There's been discussion. I know we've had some discussions over like PvP and doing special flagging with PvP because there is, there's benefits to that. You can guard flank, stuff like that. So I mean, it's something we might necessarily, perhaps look at or evaluate once we get further into it and see if it's something that we want to look into. But currently, there's no collision detection for player versus player. At least, when I can run into someone and it'll stop me from moving through them or slow me down when I'm moving through them. So, yeah.
All right, let's go back to the chat room then for the people that are actually watching us live and donating their time to us. Thanks, chat room. The user interface is one of the most important aspects.
Sorry, no, I can't see the chat. So.
Oh.
It'll be a surprise. It'll be awesome.
The user interface is one of the most important aspects of any game.
Sure.
And this comes from Rogue JD. It's how we as the user plugs into the world. Immersion they want to know how customizable is the UI going to be. Are they going to be able to just change the size of chat windows, or can they like completely remap stuff? Will you allow for custom user interfaces, or is that going to be something you guys kind of keep proprietary to yourselves?
Right now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options to like reskin or remap to kind of retexturize those UIs. It's something that we can look at. It's one of those things, unfortunately, that it's just not really available with tools that we're using at the moment. Most of the UI you can drag around, resize. It'll also do kind of fill. So examples like the inventory sheet. If you widen out the inventory sheet, there will be more. It'll be wider. There'll be more. Slots to put in items in the inventory sheet. So you got kind of those capabilities, but right now, at least for customization for the UI, it's just not there yet that we can offer something like that. It might be something we'd do later, but probably wouldn't count on it for release.
Okay, here's another good question, and this one has to do with harvesting nodes.
Sure.
Will they be harvested by a single player? Will multiple players, kind of like Guild Wars 2, be able to do it? Or maybe even possibly a Vanguard-esque system where you could have multiple people mining the same node, and based on that, you get even better results?
Okay, that's a good question. We are going to offer kind of really two resource extraction options in the game. One is what I kind of simply refer to as the whack-a-mole option, which is kind of the traditional WoW whack-a-mole type of option that you see there. It's not too horribly complicated. Those do have a variety of rarity based on kind of just pure random luck on what the resources is, based on also kind of difficulty further out, the perhaps higher chance they are, or if they're in a PvP zone, the higher chance there are. Then we'll also have something very similar to kind of like a harvester style system where there will be areas or nodes you can locate that you can use harvesters to pull those out. Those will be kind of in smaller quantity, especially on the PvE side, and a little bit more on the PvP side. And those will also be more so what you will fight and control over with on the PvP aspect of it, especially for nations. So really the big thing is really just dropping down those harvesters and guarding them. So we'll have different nodes or different areas, not really a node necessarily, but different kind of area or region that will pop up. Some of them might be static, or at least you'll notice going to pop up at a certain time, so you kind of have more like a flashpoint battle area for those resources when they can become available, especially the static ones, because everyone knows, at 7 p.m. this thing's going to be here for maybe a week or so, and the other stuff will be random. You don't want it too static because eventually someone, if it's more random, it gives a little more options or, keep opportunity to other people to go out and get those. So, I mean, that's what we're planning to do now. Whether the collaborative aspects of it, at least right now, is not built into the design. It's something we could perhaps look into adding more. But we're really looking and focusing on those as you can either share the resources that are coming out, or you can hoard them to yourself. Especially on the PvP side, you really don't want to share too much.
All right.
Unless it's an ally, so yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, MMOs are social games. That's why a lot of us play them. You do have everybody that kind of wants to go out on their own and do their own thing for a bit. That's cool. But how are guilds and things like that going to work as far as player creating their own guilds?
Okay. So the nation system is really kind of a giant guild on steroids.
Okay.
We still had some people that were interested in just doing basic guilds. Or orders, or whatever you want to call them exactly. Primarily, we were focusing a lot of that around the nations, so players could either have a cityless nation, which kind of would function and do the same kind of capabilities, so they would a guild chat or get their groups together and through that kind of fashion. So when you go and look at the nation windows, there's a collection of people that are in the game. You can share resources, bank. When you got cities, you have the city management pane to view what's going on with the cities. Look at stuff like that. So it's primarily what we're focusing on, the social organization side of it. I mean, that's a major aspect of the game that we expect, players to want to kind of gravitate toward these cities. Even, the PvP risk is there, which does kind of unsettle a few people, and some people it's really good. So I think a lot of people get really scared that they're just going to go out there and just get whacked by somebody. But, if you join into with a city, or at least what we're hoping to see, when you join in with a city, especially for like a crafter, you're contributing, in some fashion to some other nations that they're going to want to protect you because, you're providing to them. So kind of setting up kind of really that whole trade system, especially what you see like modern day where people don't want to go out and just, roll over each other because they're all trading, a bunch of giant war starts, the whole economy collapses. So, you have to kind of hope to see that as well a little bit, where you're going to have trading partners. You want to protect each other. It's just not going to be a giant free-for-all out there.
You actually kind of went right into what I was going to ask you next, and that's about the economy. We haven't talked about that yet. What are you going to do to support it with systems inside the game, or is it going to be almost entirely player-driven?
It's going to be a mixture. We've had a lot of really rabid conversation about this. So it's kind of a mixture. We're going to have both local style shops, where I guess we would kind of consider those similar to like the Star Wars Galaxy style shops that you have, where players can go and visit these shops and buy from these shopkeepers. Then we'll also have an auction style and a reverse auction style or a work order style system. Kind of how we want to balance those out is there will be a fee for using the auction house. We haven't exactly established what that fee will be. That'll probably come through a lot of testing and feedback. Then you also have the personal shops. So if you go and place something in your shop, you also have the list, the option of listing it inside of the auction, so people can buy them online, through the auction system and get them delivered, or they can go visit your shop. And it really gives kind of the shopkeepers an opportunity of how they want to, sell their wares. If they feel that they can get the best value, or get more customers coming to them on a one-to-one basis, they can run, their own local shops, not even list the stuff through the auction house, or they can use the auction house as a kind of a marketing tool as well if they wanted to bring new customers to them. So we're kind of looking at that kind of that approach. And one of the big things that we do talk about, like the reverse auction house system or the work order system or the kind of request of purchase or buy or whatever.
It's great.
One of the big things that we have is we had an article about it, was pretty much all of the inner requirements of everyone, kind of all the stuff that I think we posted a giant flow chart of what it creates to take a fitting. So there's a lot of interdependency based on just creating just everything in the game, especially at the very high levels. So there is a very strong need for players to be able to trade, not necessarily the auction house style system where you place this up there and hopefully someone needs it. You have more of the work order style system where someone needs something, then you create that based on that demand. It's going to be very hard for that, at least the way our crafting system is designed. It would kind of pretty much break apart how it work if we didn't have a system like that in place. That's also kind of the problem that we see a little bit too much if we just go straight with a shop system where you have to go and visit everybody and get everything. It could literally take you a whole day just to create something.
You know what you can.
So you got to mix the two together a little bit to see where you're going. Probably the shops will be more so towards the final end products, or at least the high-end components that go into the end products.
You could kind of put an intermediary system in there as well, that if like you had a lot of known components that people would need to craft, kind of like a commodities market, where if people saw that the price of rabbit's foots were going up because people needed them to craft, I would go out and craft rabbit's foots and bring them back and sell them, and the crafters would use them, and I would be selling to a broker and they'd be buying from a broker, and it wouldn't necessarily be a person, it could just be the system kind of driving that. I think the original Guild Wars did something kind of similar to that. But just a thought. So if you ever had a problem with that where you weren't getting enough supply to meet the demand, or vice versa, that'll help fluctuate those prices to get people to do either one or the other. Start crafting it because it costs less, or start farming it to sell to the market because they can make more money off it. And it'll help balance it out.
Yeah,
it gets too out of whack.
They will. And that's kind of like the initial issue we'll have as well, especially starting off early, is just not going to be enough players. So, I mean, we'll have to seed a little bit of that as well, especially on the low-grade side. And, as the game progresses further on, we get more players and the economy is built out a little bit further, we can reduce the seeding. The seeding would be basically, let's say vendors sell F through C grade materials, or maybe even B grade materials. As more players come in, we go drop that from B to C, then C to D. So eventually you get to the point where the player economy is completely driven by the players, but there has to be some kind of seeding, has to come from somewhere. Even look at EVE, they do kind of PV style missions at least early on, or you can buy their version of credits. So a little bit of seeding is needed at least initially. Then hopefully once we get further in, there's more players that are running the economy and delivering everything that's needed. And once that point, we can take a lot of that seeding back out, and it'll be completely player-driven.
Yeah. So we got a few more minutes left. Is there any main points that, because we've actually picked up some viewers as the time's gone on, that you want to hammer home and just say, hey, in a small synopsis, this is the repopulation. This is why I think you should take note of it, composed to, you know, some of the other MMOs that are out there. This is what we're doing different, and this is why you should buy it and play it. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean, we're primarily focusing kind of a sandbox theme park hybrid style MMO. A lot of the focus that we have is on player-created or player-driven content. So we really want players to be engaged in the game, whether it's, you know, we'll have players in the same zones that might be more tailored towards, you know, kind of newbie areas, what you traditional call a newbie area. Most theme parks, you go from like level 5 to level 10, level 15 to level 20. There's no reason to go back. And you look at like the, you know, like original EverQuest, you'd have content in some of those zones, even though they were newbie zones. You have players coming back trying to kill that giant. You know, you got really you know, pissed off that you got killed by that thing at level 10. You come back and, you know, whack it a few times when you're level 40. So, I mean, we do something similar to that. It's very simple, kind of basic stuff where you kind of mingle the players together. So you'll have content that can mutate, you know, so you might have something that wouldn't normally be there when you went through the first time. Then you came back based on, you know, what happened in the game or what didn't happen in the game, what players chose to do or didn't do. That content will mutate and change, so it might be, you know, possible that when you come back there is content waiting for you that wasn't there before. We also generate that content as well based on where you're at skill and ability wise. So you could be in a city and it'll do random MC generated work orders for kind of some more of the lower grades tier stuff for crafting, to take that out of the system as well. And it's always an issue that you have all these low level stuff, or especially when you're like leveling up a recipe or a skill line. In most traditional theme park games, you got a bunch of junk that nobody wants, so you're just creating a bunch of junk. So you should go sell that. So there's a way to dispose of that content. And once you really get out of the PvE side element of it, we get more into the sandbox elements, which is the nations and the cities. So the nations are kind of encompassing organizations of different cities. Or in some cases, it could just be ran as a guild or an order, which doesn't, you know, have any kind of cities at all. So those allow players to control the land that the cities are on, allow them to build up the cities. So you don't start out with a pre-built city. You can basically start with nothing and then build the city up from there, and it will grow over time. Engage in siege warfare with other cities if you have enough resources to engage in that. Fight over resources. We go away from that. We get into more of the housing elements. So there's player housing, both instance and in-game, persistent housing out inside the game world, so you could just be walking along in the normal game world, you know, with everybody else. And there could be housing, so people can come check out your housing. There will also be housing elements as part of the cities as well. That will be safe, that will kind of be stored in a separate area if it gets taken over. So kind of a lot of that content, we really try to focus on having, you know, players that can join into communities and play online. You know, it's an online game. Somehow we got into this notion of building single player, you know, massively online games, which is kind of strange to me. So that's a lot of what we focus on, is getting players together and you know, playing together, working against or with each other.
All right, Josh, tell them where they can come see it. I guess I can tell them. It's at therepopulation.com.
Yep. So yeah, www.thepopulation.com, Facebook, Twitter, if you want to follow us as well. We also have an email newsletter that we send out. If you're interested in getting news every month or so, we do post up change notes, different information. You know, like I said, we can start allowing some more people in alpha next month. We do have a lot of alpha requests, so we'll not necessarily be able to get to everybody, but we'll try to start really cycling through those as we get closer to beta, trying to give some people a chance to kind of see the game, get some feedback. And of course, once we get into beta, you know, more and more slots will open up as we go through that. So then, you know the whole process after that, the open beta and release. So.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to come out and tell us about your game. And for everybody out there at home, make sure you continue to tune in to MMORPG.com for all your latest news, and we'll make sure that we're following the repopulation and keeping you guys up to date. Everybody have a great night.